Spoiler warning for Storm King's Thunder. Hey, have you noticed that the villain of this whole module kinda sucks? She's kind of empty. There's not a lot of juice there to work with. So today, we're going to revise this whole villain. We're going to change some of her relationships, her goals, her abilities, and we're going to finish with this really fun Q&A with the character, where the common questions that the players might ask this villain to understand her plans, I'm going to give you the verbatim answers that you can read at your table. And if you want a written version of all this information, you can get it for $5 on my Patreon, along with every single other thing I've ever published on Patreon. It is a steal. So our villain is Iymrith, the blue dragon, but she can also turn into a storm giant. Her nickname is the Dragon of Statues. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, Matt, I've read all the novels and I've read the lore and the wiki about this character, and I know exactly what her backstory is, etc, etc, etc. I don't care. I don't care. I don't know anything about the lore of the game. All I know is what I want to happen in a good campaign, you know? I know what role I want a villain to take in my story, and I'm totally willing to disregard any amount of lore or rules to make that villain shine. Because at the end of the day, I just want my players to have fun, and I want your players to have fun as well. If you've got an idea that disagrees with the official lore or the official rules, you should follow your idea. If you have an idea that disagrees with what I'm suggesting, then you should also follow your idea, because you know your players better than I do and better than the book does.
Part 1. Changes to the villain's stat block.
The only thing I really want to change about her stat block, mechanics-wise, is, well, okay, so she's called the Dragon of Statues. And in the module, in her stat block, it says that she can, summon gargoyles. That's fine, but I think we can make something cooler than that. So I want to say that any kind of structure, statue that has some kind of natural anatomy to it, she can once per day just will it to animate, and it comes through as either a gargoyle or a stone golem or maybe an earth elemental, some kind of appropriate stat block for the situation.
Part 2. The villain's 3 goals.
Iymrith has 3 goals. The main goal is to recover the Wormskull throne, and the 2 bonus goals are to disrupt giant society and to disrupt human/humanoid society. In our version of Storm King's Thunder, the Wormskull throne is this magical seat at the heart of the storm giant capital of Maelstrom, and built into the base are 4 dragon skulls. Now, 2 of these dragon skulls belong to Iymrith's dead children. So of course she wants them back, right? But why would she want them back? Is it just sentimental? No. She is going to raise them from the dead as a 2-headed Draco-Lich. But to do this, she not only needs the skulls, she also needs the throne to channel its power into the spell. We're also making a slight change to the way the throne works, but we'll get to that in a bit. Her second bonus goal is to disrupt giant society, and she's pretty much already accomplished this by sowing discord in relation to the ordning being broken and, hey, all these giants over here are rampaging and all these giants over there are rampaging. She just wants to keep that chaos going. And if you want in your game, maybe you can say she is somehow responsible for some of the actions of the other giant lords. But the reason she hates these giants so much is not only did they slay her 2 kin, but also historically giants and dragons don't like each other. In the age of giants, years past, they were always warring and stuff. And there's probably some lore in there that it doesn't really matter. But her third bonus goal to disrupt humanoid society is where she's stuck at the moment. This is the goal she's working on for most of the campaign. Now, she wants to disrupt humanoid society because this campaign, in the chronology of all the modules, takes place after the rise of Tiamat, where the dragon god was coming back from heck, I don't know where she was, but it was stopped by humans, by human adventurers in that module. So, Iymrith has infiltrated the storm giant capital of Maelstrom, disguised as a storm giant, gained the confidence of the princess regent, and is in her ear whispering, hey, your father, King Hecaton, was murdered by smallfolk. You should declare war on them. However, Princess Sarisa is not really receptive to this message. If Iymrith could just accomplish this one last goal, she's in a position to snatch the Wormskull throne, get out of there, and revive her 2 dead children.
Part 3. The villain's alliance with the Kraken.
In orchestrating this whole situation, Iymrith has had a little bit of help from the Kraken Society, who has a fancy name, the Kraken does, and I'm not going to try and say it. Slarkrethel? I said I wouldn't try. this is it. It's on the screen. But we have this massive question of why would a blue dragon work with a kraken instead of maybe working with dragon cultists or another dragon? I don't know. Like, why is this pairing up? So here's what I devised. Iymrith contacted the kraken, somehow, I guess, and asked the kraken to kidnap King Hecatan, because in order for this throne, the Wormskull throne, to be working and active, King Hecatan needs to be alive. Perhaps there's some sacred right that is tied to his bloodline somehow, and he hasn't had a chance to pass on that right to his daughter yet. So if King Hecatan dies, then the throne becomes inert. So she needs King Hecatan kept alive somewhere. The Kraken agrees, because with King Hecatan out of the way, and if Iymrith can snatch the throne and depower the Storm Giants, then it will be in a position to slither into their, stronghold of Maelstrom and take it over as their nest. And also, from the Kraken's perspective, hurting small folk, that's just dandy. It's pretty much the perfect alliance between the Kraken and the Dragon because they have similar goals, but they don't have competing interests.
Part 4. Introducing the villain early.
Over the course of this whole campaign, I'm suggesting 5 different scenes where you should use Iymrith the Dragon. Because here's the situation I want to avoid. Imagine your players get to the very end of their campaign, they're in Maelstrom, they're like on chapter 14 or something, and they start fighting Iymrith and they go, oh wait, who is this? Who is this we're fighting? And that's your big bad guy? Like, that's so undramatic. So we've got to form a relationship with the players. The goal is to introduce the character so that they know who it is, but then later we're going to make them hate the character so that they feel vindicated when they finally get to stomp her, or vice versa. It's a blue dragon. Good luck. You're going to look for an opportunity to introduce Iymrith in our first scene in either chapter 1, 2, or 3. And this is just going to be through like a rumor or a cutaway vignette, just to hint at something out there. Hey, have you heard that there's a new advisor to the Queen Theresa or something? Just plant the seed. The second time we introduce Iymrith is in chapter 4, because that's going to take place in the Eye of the Allfather, the Oracle of the Giants. Now, Iymrith is going to show up because she is so frustrated having to deal with Princess Theresa, how to sway this gentle heart to violence. She's going to go to the giant oracle and ask them, how do I make this character, this princess, angry at small folk? And rather than say it's just like a crazy random happenstance that this dragon happens to show up at the exact same time as the players in chapter 4, we're going to say it's all according to plan. She was waiting for a giant to enter the temple and activate the oracle so she could use it herself. Because we'll say that maybe the door that guards the oracle can only be activated by true giants, like Harshnag, the frost giant. And that meeting ends when she collapses the roof and kills Harshnag, and the players flee, and then we can get to our third meeting. This third scene is only really applicable if you're using the fire giants as your main threat out there in the world, because you'll recall that the goal of the fire giants is to construct this massive dragon-slaying mecha robot called the Voidendod. And hey, Iymrith, she's a dragon. She's not down for this. She doesn't want a giant robot out there killing stuff. So we're not quite your typical meet cute. Iymrith will show up and help the players somehow. What? Helping the players? This seems like a friction situation. This seems dramatic. Yes, it does. It does seem dramatic. I like drama. So Iymrith is going to show up and help them in some way. Maybe with intel on the way to enter the stronghold. Or maybe she could even give them some kind of like mystical C4 to plant in the Voidendod to destroy it. I don't know, we'll work that out in a separate video. The fourth scene we get to use Iymrith as our villain is when the players finally reach Maelstrom, they storm the throne room, they confront Princess Theresa and everybody else that's there, and they go, hey, that lady's a dragon. And then there's like a fight and she flees, hopefully with the Wormskull throne. And the last scene we get to use Iymrith is right at the end of the campaign when the players hunt her down in her desert stronghold with all the other giants and everyone gets together for a big epic battle. Maybe we could have the players like pilot the Voidendod. I don't know. We'll work this out as well. We'll work this out right at the end.
Part 5. The villain Q&A.
Now this part of the video is a little bit strange. It's called the character Q&A. I've written a bunch of questions that help give exposition about Iymrith's goals, plans, and personality. And if any of the players were to ask any questions of this character that pertain to any of these, she could say verbatim what I'm about to say. So if you have any questions for Iymrith the Dragon that aren't covered here, just put like a little Q at the start of your comment and leave a comment. And I'll answer as the dragon. Hey Iymrith, where are you from? I claim Asgore as my domain. All space beneath its scorching sun, and even below the blistering sands belong to me. All creatures that crawl on their bellies are my servants, though my favourite are the Yuan-Ti, who unearth and tithe me lost Netheril relics from the dunes, including my most sacred treasure, an ancient skeleton of a powerful worm.
Iymrith, why are you called the Dragon of Statues?
My domain in Asgore is guarded by gargoyles of my making, unthinking, unwavering, loyal. Any form, any statue, any mimicry of animation, I can quicken. The more arcane inclined small folk might call my ability power word live.
Iymrith, how are you able to transform into a storm giant?
I transform through the memory of bones and the power of blood. When my children's skulls were incorporated into the worm skull throne, I came upon some kernel of storm giant deep memories. It is through this connection that I am able to transform.
Iymrith, what is your goal?
Vengeance, justice.
Hey Iymrith, why do you hate the small folk?
This world was nearly graced by true divinity, the wings of Tiamat which would herald in the age of dragons, but a group of small folk stopped her ascent. Such a tragedy cannot go unpunished.
Hey Iymrith, did you break the ordning?
No, their god has abandoned them.
Iymrith, why do you hate the storm giants?
King Hecaton's grandfather slew my 2 children and used their skulls to repair his grim worm skull throne, along with 2 other skulls.
Hey Iymrith, who did the other 2 skulls on the worm skull throne belong to?
I don't care.
Hey Iymrith, why did King Hecaton's grandfather need dragon skulls for the worm skull throne?
The throne is a powerful artifact from a bygone era, borrowing the combined power of 4 dragons. When King Hecaton's grandfather found the throne, it was badly damaged. To secure his power in Maelstrom, he repaired the throne by replacing the skulls. But now the throne is linked to that murderous bloodline. So if King Hecaton were to die without passing on the rights to an heir, the throne would disenchant, along with my hopes of leveraging its arcane nature to reanimate my deceased children.
Iymrith, how did you infiltrate the storm giant court?
I had already inserted myself into the court before Queen Neri was killed. After then, as a matronly figure moving through the wake of a dead mother, it was easier to endear myself to young Sarissa.
Iymrith, how did you get rid of King Hecaton and Queen Neri?
Queen Neri had to be removed because she was so sympathetic to the small folk and would never endorse violence against them. With her gone, I hoped to persuade King Hecaton to battle, but he was calmed by his daughter Sarissa. So I engaged the Kraken Society to kidnap him. With him gone, my hope is to use my influence over young Sarissa to stoke the flames of war.
Iymrith, what's your plan for stealing the throne?
I am already in a position to take the throne, along with the rod that powers it, but first I want to guarantee the giants will war with the small folk to exact my perfect vengeance. I have been hiding for so long, so close to accomplishing my goals, and only this one last piece remains. How frustrating that one girl's gentle heart is all that stands in my way.
Iymrith, how does the Kraken Society benefit from your plan?
The Kraken could easily claim the Storm Giant stronghold of Maelstrom if the Wormskull throne were rendered inert. If the Kraken Society can keep King Hecaton captive long enough for me to swipe the throne, I'll let the Kraken nest in that sunken stronghold uncontested. But if they fail and let King Hecaton die, thus ruining my plans to harness the Wormskull throne's arcane power, I will exact revenge on the Kraken as well. I chose to work with the Kraken because we have common enemies, but non-competing ambitions.
Iymrith, what's your plan for resurrecting your dead children?
My skills are greater than any necromancer who would coax listless spirits into empty vessels. Only I can command the inanimate to animate by sheer force of will. With the 2 skulls of my 2 children returned, I will affix both to the excavated dragon remains beneath my lair. Although it may take some arcane amplifier, some connection to the enchantment of the Wormskull throne, I believe that I can will life
into the skeletal form so my children may fly again and we can deliver terrible woe onto our enemies.
Iymrith, does Princess Sarissa know that her father is alive somewhere?
The nature of the Wormskull Throne's connection to King Hecaton's secret rite is secret knowledge, but it must be something Sarissa is privy to. If the throne is operational, the king must be alive still. I need to keep King Hecaton alive. However, Sarissa is guarding this knowledge, instead insisting the Storm Giants search for the missing king based on her hope. Though I am sure she knows the king is alive somewhere.
Iymrith, do you have a backup plan?
If I cannot take the skulls from the Wormskull Throne, I will retreat to my desert home and attempt to animate the skeletal remains without my children's skulls. Then my minions and I, along with this draconic skeletal thrall, will besiege Maelstrom and take the skulls by force. Without the skulls or the aid of the Wormskull Throne, I expect the ritual will be much more difficult to complete.
Hey Iymrith, why do you want to resurrect your dead children?
Because they are mine.
And don't forget, you can get a written version of all the information in this video on my Patreon for $5. That many bucks. What a crap gag. Thank you so much to my patrons for your continued support and patience with this whole Storm King Thunder situation. As you can see, I have not 100% enjoyed covering this campaign. I found it really difficult, but we are going to finish it, and we're going to finish it ASAP, and then we're going to get back to some Lost Mine stuff. The 5 videos we have coming up are going to be covering the Temple and Storm King Thunder. We're going to cover the Fire Giants dungeon. We're going to cover Maelstrom as a dungeon. We're going to cover the Kraken ship. And we're going to cover the final confrontation with the dragon. And that's it. And then we're done. And we can move on to more fun stuff. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hey, click one of these videos. Click one of these. These look good. Click on one of these. Wee!